Hello, everyone. Many times we hear from community leaders and advocates for those who face addiction and/or housing insecurity in Kensington, but a lot of times we don't really get to hear from them themselves, those people that have actually lived there, lived it, been there and done that have been in those situations. A lot of the times they're not able to vote in the city. So that means that we as residents and the next mayor of the city of Philadelphia, we are all going to make decisions about and for them. That's why it's important that we need to hear from them and have their voices heard. Today we have two people with ties to Kensington, Tina and Frank, who have lived experiences with addiction and/or housing insecurity. They'll speak directly to a mayor candidate about the changes they wish to see in the next administration. But first, I'd like to pass the mic over to Tina to introduce herself first.
How you doing? My name's Tina. I'm from Philly. I grew up in Philly my whole life, but I started using drugs really young. I was about 12 years old, but I started to experience recovery around the age of 15. I had a lot of people in my immediate family who were affected by addiction. My dad was an iron worker, fell in '93, and they gave him Oxycontin. So that was my exposure to, that. And, that's how I pretty much was surrounded by drugs. So it was like, you can't beat them, join them type of thing. I have 3 years sober today, and I have a good job, got a house, and that's where I'm at.
Good news.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Frank Rodriguez. I'm 43 years old. I was born in Brooklyn, New York, to a family of addicts. Both parents were addicts. Everybody that lived in my house, dealt with addiction. So growing up, I knew the dangers of addiction. Prior to becoming an addict myself, I sold drugs, so I seen the effects from that side and always told myself I'd never get involved with drugs. My mother was killed in 2004. I had to identify her body in the coroner's office. 2 days later, took a pill that a family friend said to take, that it would help me get some sleep, and that led to a heroin addiction. I've been sober for 7 years. Now I do work in Kensington. I go to schools to speak and share my stories and the dangers of addiction and the importance of making the right decisions.
As Philadelphia residents, we like to make misconceptions and whatnot, or stereotypes about these people who are stuck there and make it seem as if it's a choice and whatnot to be out there. I think everyone's just looking forward to that crisis that is in Kensington to be cleaned up and whatnot, right? So especially by the mayor for the next mayor in 2024. So David, let's just start with the first topic, which is basically just that, cleaning up Kensington, what your plans are for that. So can you please explain to all of us, for particularly Frank and Tina, what are your plans for those in active addiction and/or housing insecurity in Kensington? What are you planning to do with them in 2024?
Sure. I think the first thing that I have to deal with as mayor is that Kensington, while it has had problems, is a product of bad policy. And I oppose them, and I'm not going to allow them to continue to destroy Kensington, its community, and its members. There is an underlying economy in Kensington. It's a grossly negative economy that really causes people great misery and harm. People should not be drug addicted. People are drug addicted, but the sooner we get them off of being drug addicted, the better off they will be and we will be. Kensington Avenue is a place where they can do almost anything they want without restriction. That is because the police are not available to the residents. The police are told not to interfere with the addicted persons, not to arrest drug dealers, and not to interfere with the people in and around Kensington who are involved in addiction. So first, the volume has to be reduced. And if the buyers cannot get everything and anything they want, they're not coming here. If you are from Bristol, or if you're from Delaware County, or if you're from New Jersey, we will take care of you, and I'm giving a bill to your home residence, because there are taxes paid. There is bed spaces available. There are services available that you're leaving behind. And when you come here, our city is lying to the public. We don't have the resources. We don't have the services. And no, we're not building houses. It's a ridiculous thing to me that the government will lie to people to try to get them to believe there's something better for them by letting people languish on the streets of Kensington. In terms of what I will do, I'm using drones. Drones will go out and reconnoiter and examine the entire place. I'm letting everybody know. Drones are out there with night vision, infrared, everything. And at a period of time, the police start enforcing the law, starting with open-air drug dealing. The police will arrest the open-air drug dealing. We will enforce that. Everyone who is doing something they shouldn't be will be picked up. You cannot defecate on people's property. You can't live in a tent. You can't do any of these things. We will give you the help you need. If you have a mental illness, we'll take you in. If you have a drug addiction problem, we'll take you in. We'll provide you detox. We'll provide all the services you need.
And also, like, I just wanted to ask about the drones that you mentioned.
Yes.
How do you feel that's going to be so effective when we already have, we have helicopters, we have street surveillance, we have cops on the ground, we have undercover cops on the streets. So I'm just trying to figure out, okay, it's going to see the crime, but we're all seeing the crime. What's going to be the difference?
Well, the difference is this, is one that we don't have enough manpower when it comes to police officers. So first, our city is short 1,300 police officers, which means when you get specialized units, they're understaffed. The drones are small, they're light, they're quiet, they have night vision, they record, they can communicate. The drones are force multipliers. And the drones are not only for law enforcement, they're for accidents, they're for L&I inspections, bridge structures, things like that, looking for lost kids. But they are very helpful when it comes to open air drug dealing because they come out and they record exactly who is there, and we have you on video. Now, you do not prosecute people with video alone. You have to certify the accuracy and the identity.
I just wanted to follow up and ask, with this increase of police presence and with the drones and all these things that are part of your Kensington plan and everything that you just stated, it seems as if, and you correct me if I'm wrong, it seems as if that you want to arrest those that are not doing what they're supposed to do, AKA like doing drugs or openly and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And do you think that is effective, if you will?
So let me start with this. Yes, I believe it's effective because there's different ways you show you care. Leaving people to a life of misery as inhumane as Kensington Avenue, that is a good way of showing people you don't care. I want to increase the services, so we got to put our money behind helping people recover, and it will take many, many attempts. 10 times, 15 times, I don't know what it is, but we're going to stick with them.
And would it just be incarceration, or would it be incarceration with treatment?
So for people that are addicted, we want inpatient care. We want care as opposed to incarceration, but they're not free to come and go. Because what? Because they have violated the law and other people's rights. So the most important persons to me when it comes to who has the legal rights, those are the residents of Kensington. They have every right to live peacefully, without gun violence, without threats, without worrying about their children being abducted or perverted or any of those things. By enforcing the law, including incarceration, I want people who are taking a subway to come to the train, to come to Kensington, who later end up living in Kensington, I want them to stop coming. That's my first goal, because the volume is too much. We cannot actually provide the people who are there, residents or otherwise, people who maybe not originally from Philly, but have spent the last 5 years in Philly, we cannot give them quality care because we don't have the funds. And for me, to constantly bring people here who we know we cannot help when they have help available to them, I want to stop the flow. When I stop the flow, why am I stopping the flow? Because you can no longer walk around purchasing your drugs. You can no longer, just walk up to people who are openly selling. I'm not going to get rid of drug addiction. I'm not going to get rid of drug dealing. I'm going to push it back to the dark corners, the back streets where it was originally, so that people can walk freely and safely, through their communities. And when that happens, kids will start playing, business will start opening. What I hope will happen is, instead of having this huge problem that we are unable to deal with, we can limit it down and begin to identify and tailor the help people want and need.
So we got the whole rest of the city, and we're going to talk about getting these people treatment, locking them up. You're going to get them treatment. What are you going to do once they get the treatment and they got, literally gaping wounds all over their bodies? How are we going to?
So one of the things is this: when you arrest someone, they're now in your custody,
Right.
which means they're also in your care. So the ones that have mental illness issues, they go to a different place than like typical prison. No, I'm not saying now. I'm saying if I were mayor. So once we've told you and we have treated you well and we have done all those things, if you come back out, now you're getting locked up, and you're getting locked up for sure. And that's just the message that I'm sending. We will try our best to treat you in the way that is most intelligent and humane, to the extent that you are going to work towards recovery. If you are addicted, but you're not violating other people's space and rights and things like that, we can work with you. We can work with you many times. But the level of care that is supposed to be provided to these people is a high level of care. It's very expensive, and it's something the city's going to pay for. So, we're not kind of like take them in and leaving them in a cell with all these medical conditions. They will, the good side of it is this, they will get a health checkup, and many of them need that. We cannot just put them in a jail. They could die of,
That has happened.
You
That's
understand
been
that's
done.
exactly
listen,
what
That's
happens.
happened.
so I
I've
understand,
experienced
right?
that.
Yeah.
I've
So
experienced
what
that
happens
myself.
is we're going to have to intelligently deal with people. If we just take people off the street, dump them in a cell, that would show that we don't care, right? So my whole point is this: when we take people off, they're in our custody and our care. We have to treat them properly. We have to treat them intelligently, and we have to treat them according to the law.
It goes into our second topic of rehab, accessibility, and whatnot. There are certain criteria needed, to be met for those who wish to enter rehab, alongside capacity issues that we're seeing in the city. However, those criteria and capacity and availability issues often hinder those who seek help, especially for those who use Trank, and which is basically like the latest drug on the market. And so Frank will just give a little more context from experience and pose this question when it comes to this topic.
People are treating heroin. There's no longer heroin anywhere in Philadelphia. You're not going to find heroin. So we're dealing with a whole different monster now, with the Trank, with the fentanyl, with the xylazine, that the methods of treatment are sort of antiquated to the heroin, and people, sort of like what you did, you referred earlier to heroin, where it's a whole different monster. We're not dealing with the same addicts. Heroin was a scale of a 1 or 2. Now we're dealing with a 10 or a 15 because of the new drugs that are out there. The drugs have evolved, and I believe that also the treatment has to evolve to be any type of effective. Is there any thought or any ideas that you have, or anybody has proposed to evolve the treatment and not go back to treating heroin?
The thing that I will try to say as someone who is trying to be mayor, the treatment for each different drug and its effect is different. It does, as you say, it has to evolve. And part of the problem, I believe, is that there's a money-making aspect to not only drug dealing, but drug recovery and drug treatment. And people get a formula. The formula is, here's how we're going to deal with heroin addiction, methadone, methadose, those type of things. Well, as the addiction changes into fentanyl, as it changes from fentanyl into Trank and those things, but the industry is still, they've got a pattern, and those are things that I think are a contributor. Now, I don't know kind of like how the government plays a role in that, but I know that the government reimburses and provides funding for treatment. But as I think what you're saying is critically important, that as kind of in real time, as things are changing, the treatment and approach has to change with it. One thing about the fentanyl is deadly, and the other thing about it, more so than the heroin was, but the Trank has other medical issues that are not available to the people. And then we get into like, how do you fund healthcare?
Basically, it gets into like our third topic, which is injection sites. I know you were opposed to injection sites, right? But what alternatives do you have then to address the overdose deaths in Philly that are capped at 1,413 in 2022, which is higher than 2021's numbers of 1,276? So alongside that of, helping those are in active addiction that aren't necessarily dying, but are out there stuck in Kensington.
So I hope to improve the care. When it comes to what you're talking about, like what is the level of care that we fund, as in methadone clinics and methadone and all that, if we as a government are funding the appropriate level of care for the changing drug addiction problem from, let's say, heroin to fentanyl to tranq, then the medical providers and the recovery providers will change their practices, right? If we continue to fund yesterday's practice, they will continue to do, because while some of them are in it for the care, it's a business for the most part, and people are making money at it, and they're getting their, and there's conflicts of interest and challenges. So on my part, what I do is this. I don't have a plan that I'm going to tell you like I'm a doctor. What I'm going to tell you is, as a mayor, what I will recognize is that we have a changing landscape of drug addiction. We have different people, and then we have to, we have to address the wounds that we're seeing today. We have to do a level of training with paramedics and others. We have to bring people in if it is a facility or if it's inpatient care. So we have to provide a level of financial support, but it has to match the healthcare provider. The healthcare provider does not have to take in certain types of people because they're saying we don't do these type of care. So the city then will have to set up in its health clinics or in its care facilities, call it like the inpatient care of the facility or in the prison itself. We're going to have to address that because we're legally obligated to do that. What I cannot do is I cannot have all these people who are not from here coming in to receive that care because we won't be able to provide it.
I had a friend, and we were, she works in treatment, and I'm not exactly sure what city, but I heard it was New York. I'm not sure. I was trying to do some research, but they actually have like a building, and in that building, like one floor you could get mental health, one floor is a safe injection, one floor you could go get your drugs tested, and so on and so forth. Would that be something?
Yes, that makes complete sense to me. Let me clarify this. I'm not for safe injection sites. However, if you're going to do it in a real medical facility, you're not doing it in someone's neighborhood who doesn't want it there. You're not bringing really negative elements without the permission of the community. Yeah. If we were to do something like that, to have a level of care, first of all, you're coming to a location, it's secure and it's safe. You're going inside, you have different levels, you have different experts, there it's not a problem. And then the research, it would be very helpful to find out, for example, what is the best way to deal with these problems? And plus the medical people would be kind of more aware of the changing nature of what is happening on the street. So they're not behind the times. So something like that I would support and I would fund.
So I'm going to go into our next topic. I know for the entirety of this conversation, we have mainly focused on those who are, in active addiction and facing housing insecurity. But we just wanted to touch on, very briefly as we come to a close to this conversation, on those that actually live in the area, the residents and whatnot. We didn't want to not acknowledge, the challenges of residents face in Kensington because of the crisis. So Frank would like to give some perspective on that and formulate some question or two if you like.
Yes. So I've worked in Kensington for the last 7 years. I've seen the destruction and the cannibalization of the community. What type of services or things are you planning to offer for the residents there after this, after certain plans that you have are put into motion? What are you planning to offer for the people there?
So I want to let everybody know what we're doing. The community itself, the residents, the people, the children, they have been impacted by the fact that their government, their society does not care about them. And that's very clear. So the first thing is visible. Law enforcement because gun violence and murder is a thing that's on people's mind, the danger to. The second thing is clean. The first thing you could see is, why do I need the police? Because I've done the cleanups too. A lot of people go down, we clean up Kensington. It looks really good for like 2 days. And then it looks exactly like it, the same mattress, same this, same, you know. So when we clean it up, by having police present, by having drones monitor, you will not dump there. We will bar your vehicles. We will put boots on your trucks. We will tow, no more dumping, no more illegal tractor trailers. So the first thing is going to clean it up, and we're going to keep it clean. When I go to McPherson Library in the nice weather, it's lined with people strewn about the yard, right? It's not a place you can send children. The shopping cart's full of people. It's got to be clean. It's got to be safe. So people, the hours have to change. And then what's in the library? So the first thing I can do is, you can see when you go to that library with your kids, there's some new stuff in there. Things people want, things kids want, the technology, all that, but why don't you use your library card and get a guitar out, or a violin, or things like that. Like, that rec center has to be open. It has to be staffed. It has to be alert. We do need cameras. People's greatest concern is Kensington, is the well-being, safety of their children. They're very protective because they're in this bad environment.
So just to close things off, just would like to hear your response to this particular question. Still like on the same topic of the residents. David, considering that a big portion of Kensington residents are Latino.
Yes.
And this area has been continuously ignored and disinvested for decades at this point. What does that say about how the city government, I guess, views the population that lives there, and that would allow for this crisis to happen there?
Well, it tells me it's intentional. The government said, here's a group of people. They don't vote. They're not part of our community. And we could do what with them? We're going to do this. We're going to put all this right here. We're going to herd all of this negativity into this one neighborhood. And it's because they don't count. And I think that is a terrible, terrible, terrible message. And I think it affects people's psyche, their mentality, their character, their persona. And so once we have addressed, like, stopping the violence, stopping it, cleaning up, we have to return the disinvestment in investment. There has to be programs. You want to start an art studio, we'll help you. You want to start a business, we'll help you. You want to start like a thing for the community, we'll help you. Like, you can't just stop crime. And part of it, unfortunately, is a lot of people kind of depend on, directly or indirectly, the drug money. It's unfortunate because it's all based on misery. But we're going to have to put money back into the community in positive ways where people will be very enriched. And we need to fund things like a beautification, like putting gardens in, like repairing. There's a lot of work to be done. We got to fix those sidewalks. We got to repair those roads. We got to put in technology. I mean, I think there's many ways but does it cost? Absolutely costs. And are there contracts from the city to people, neighborhood business people and people, entrepreneurs? Absolutely. But we're not going to get out of the Kensington mess that was created without putting a little blood into it.
If you are elected mayor, will you be accessible? Will you be, open to having another discussion like this?
Yes, I pretty much am travel alone. I don't have a big entourage, never believed in it. I'm very accessible. People can contact me. I don't mind being yelled at. I think that's an important part of being a public servant. You have to be yelled at because people have a right to be upset, because whether you did it or not, you're in the seat of power. When you have power, you have to have humility.
Perfect.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.